harddriveradio.com or download the Harddrive Radio mobile app.
Hey, I'm Lou Brutus, and it is always a pleasure to talk to the incredibly talented fellow Beatles degenerate fan, Taylor Momsen of The Pretty Reckless. It's good to talk to you. How are you?
It's great to talk to you. I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm really good, considering the circumstances. Now, without prying too much into your life, give me a little bit of background on exactly where you are these days.
Well, I am currently at my house in Maine, on an island off the coast of Maine, which I'm not going to lie is not the worst place to be quarantined. It is pretty, and it's finally starting to get warm. I got out of New York right in time, like right before this all started to happen, so I'm lucky in that sense.
If you don't mind, because you and I have spoken about Maine before, and I'm kind of a lighthouse nerd, so I love it up there. Tell people who haven't been about the coast of Maine, because it's at least me, one of the most beautiful places on earth.
Well, I mean, I love Maine because it's grand and it's really dark. They call it New England for a reason. I mean, it is very similar to England in the sense that it's, there's ocean and you can't hide from the elements up here. They hit you full force, and I really like that energy. It's Stephen King is from up here and wrote all his books up here, so there's a real good creative energy in Maine, at least for me.
Now let us speak about the album and the single "Death by Rock and Roll." I was shocked, because I don't think anybody had ever used that title before. And once you see it, it's like, it seems so obvious. So give me some background on the song and how it came about.
Well, Death by Rock and Roll was the first song for the record. It kind of spawned the whole record, hence it's the title track. The phrase came about 10 years ago. Cato, our late producer and my best friend, he said, write a song about death and rock and roll, like that, something with death and rock and roll. And I started something, and Ben started writing it. We started writing something, and it didn't really come to fruition. And then when he passed 10 years later, that came back around, and so that kind of became the anthem of this line, "Death by Rock and Roll." And really, the song it just encompasses. It became this kind of battle cry of rock and roll, and it kind of goes through eulogies of rock stars, and it really just it's about living your own way, going out your own way, rock and roll all the way from birth till death, and that's how I live my life. So that's really the message and the point of the song is turn it up to 10 and live life your own way, rock and roll.
How is it that the song had such a long journey? Because I know you essentially write all the time. You're one of those folks, which I think other writers are probably a little bit jealous of. But why is it the path to the completion of this song took as long as it did?
Well, Death by Rock and Roll came about. Ben actually started writing that 10 years ago, and nothing really came of it. And then when Cato passed, I took that song and I finished it. So that's kind of how it came back around. So that's why that one took so long.
When you say you finished it, how much of a tune was there? And what are you working with? Are you working, is there a lyric sheet? Did, somebody scroll some chords down? How does it work? Because to someone who doesn't write music like myself, I'm you may as well be talking about, figuring out how to make a rocket go to Mars. It's it seems magic to me,
Yeah, well, Ben had a couple verses, and had made a demo of it, but it wasn't a full song yet. And so I kind of worked off of that demo and took the and wrote the choruses and finished the song into a complete what you're hearing now. So I was working off of his demo basically. It was half a song, and I wrote the other half of the song, and now it's the whole thing.
Is that the longest it's taken you? Not that you guys were working on it straight for 10 years, but is that the longest between gem of an idea to finished song that you've ever had, or have you had other tunes that have gone on that long?
We've gone back to old stuff that we never finished before. I think anytime you start to write a new record, I tend to go back to ideas that were never finished, because there's always songs that are left off of records when you're making records that you just couldn't quite finish or weren't good enough yet or whatever, but there was still some sort of an idea there that was still worth revisiting. So you always I feel like I always end up revisiting stuff that I didn't quite finish. And sometimes sometimes you see it in a new light and it breathes life into it. And sometimes it's like, no, we didn't finish that one for a reason.
It's probably a pretty obvious question, but I'll ask anyway. How does one keep track of all of these song odds and ends through the years?
It's a good question. I mean, I have loads of notebooks that I try to keep in one spot and collect. They, collect a lot of dust, but notebooks, voice recordings, and really, at the end of the day, if it's not a good enough idea to remember without having to research through all your stuff, it probably wasn't that good of an idea in the first place. So there's a lot of crap that gets thrown to the wayside, but sometimes a line like Death by Rock and Roll sticks.
Have you had the stereotypical thought up the greatest song in the world, fell asleep, woke up, couldn't remember it kind of things?
Oh my gosh, I've had that so many times. And the worst is I sleep with a notebook by my head because I have woken up and I'll jot things down, but and then you wake up the next morning for real and you look at it and it's a bunch of scribbles and maybe you can make out a word and I'm like, I don't know what that is. But I hate the hazy where you kind of half wake up and I'm trying to stay in a dream state to remember it, but be awake enough to record it. So there's definitely been some weird voice memos on my phones and some weird scribbles on notepads that don't make any sense the next day.
When you really are on the scent of a song, where you're right on the edge of the breakthrough and you're trying to figure out the essence of it and finish it or move forward on it, do you find that time doesn't exist and you can't sleep and you're just kind of driven to gotta get it done? Oh,
definitely. It's different with every song, but that's definitely a common thing. It keeps you up at night for sure, or up in the day or up at night. I don't know. I'm kind of always up. But it definitely impairs sleeping ability because even when you do fall asleep, it's still somewhere in your subconscious and you're thinking about it.
Do you drink a lot of coffee?
I used to. I do on tour. I drink a lot of caffeine when we're on the road, but at home, not really. I drink a lot of tea. But mostly herbal tea at home. Sometimes green tea, but herbal tea mostly because caffeine I found has started to make me jittery as I've gotten older.
Yeah. Yeah, I go through the same thing. Sometimes I like actually getting really wired on black coffee and listening to loud music, and other times it just makes me a bundle of nerves, and I turn into kind of like an asshole, more so than usual,
Yeah, well, it makes you. I don't like when I start to feel kind of cracky,
Yeah.
That kind of the caffeine shake thing. I don't like that.
Yeah, that's why I tell people, listen, you don't need to do meth or cocaine. Just drink too much black coffee. You'll get the same crappy feeling, and you won't get a nosebleed either.
Yeah, you'll get the gist.
Now, with all the stuff that you are constantly writing down, I would be curious. Have you always kept a diary of some kind, or do you keep a journal? And if so, how far back does it go? Because you've obviously led a terribly interesting life. You've been working at creative endeavors since you're a kid.
Yes, but it's very informal. I've had a journal since I can remember. I mean, since I could draw, let alone write. So I have hundreds of notebooks that go back, and it would be they're in boxes and storage. It'd actually be interesting to go through them one day. But yeah, I always have a notebook. It's around me. It's just I carry one with me in my bag and stuff just to be able to. I think there's something to. I type in notes on my phone and stuff too, and voice memos for song ideas. But I do like the physicality of actually writing with pen and paper. I think there's something to it that makes it a little bit more real.
I often rue the fact that I did not take a really great piece of advice from my late mother when I was a kid, who said, listen, you're doing a lot of interesting things. You think you'll remember it decades from now, but you won't. Keep a journal. Just jot down a few notes that will key your memory years from now. Do you find when you go back and you look at some scribblings in a journal entry, is it usually enough to make you remember the rest of what was happening around then, that day, that event, or whatever was going on?
I don't know if I really remember all the specifics, but I can remember the kind of mindset I was in or the emotion I was feeling when I was writing it. So it's a semblance of a snapshot of the day. So it's almost kind of like a photograph, but it's a blurry photograph.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, let's talk about recording Death by Rock and Roll, both the single and the album. I think you primarily like to work in the same sort of spaces and stuff, but kind of walk me through who you worked with on this and where everything got done.
Well, we made the record in Maine, and after Cato passed, we didn't exactly know how to make a record because we'd made all our records with him, and that took some doing. We luckily have a long-term friend named Jonathan Wyman, who's a producer and an amazing engineer, amazing guy. And so once I had some songs that we were ready to start recording, we called him up and basically had to learn how to produce for the first time. And so this is the first record that I co-produced with John, and it took a long time. It took about a year and a half, I guess, of recording. And so it was a learning process for us. But, John was really fantastic. He really held our hands through the grieving process, through all of the things that had happened, and really was just supportive and he's super talented. So it was we recorded at Halo Studios in Maine. I'll give them a shout out, Halo Studios. And it was great, and we're really, really happy with the final product, and I just can't wait for everyone to hear it. It really became like a new kind of tight-knit family up in Maine now, and I can't wait for the record to be out so everyone can know what I'm talking about.
When it's time for you to do vocals, tell me about how you like your studio setup. I think every vocalist I've ever spoken to they all have their little idiosyncrasies, and that's a good thing. It's how you get whatever it is you need to do done. What are your things that you need in terms of how is the studio set? What do you need in your drink cup next? Walk me through all of that minutia.
Well, this record, I kind of made John basically build me a room in the studio. So, I mean, from when you walk down the hallway to my vocal booth, I don't know why, but since I was a young kid, I've always, if I got flowers, specifically roses, I always hang them upside down and let them dry. So walking down the hallway were bouquets of pale pink and red roses, dead roses, going to the booth. When you walked inside the booth, I had plastered the walls with curtains to make it dark, covered the windows so no one could see in. Then covered all those curtains with posters of the Beatles and the Soundgarden poster from the tour we were on with them, and blacklight posters and tons of candles, Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd posters. I'm trying to think what else is in there. Some weird trinkets that hang from the wall, a little table next to the microphones where I put my water, and I have and for some reason, every time I make a record, I have some sort of different mental thing that I need in order to sing. And this time around, it was a flat Coca-Cola. So a canned Coca-Cola that I'd open about 3 hours before I had to sing, leave it out so it would get flat. And I'd use that as like a sugar to coat my throat, and tons of water. And that was my booth. And one weird little thing that I've always done is I have to sing into a corner. So I have to put the microphone in the corner of a room. I can't sing in the middle of a room with lots of space around me for some reason.
Does it have to do with, like, you can't have people, not that I mean it in a snooty sense, just sort of, what's the term I'm looking for? You're too self-aware. I
don't know. I don't know. I think it's maybe stems from my childhood or something. I don't know, because I sleep like that too. Like when I sleep, I have to put my bed into a corner, and I sleep in a little ball tucked up into the corner with all the pillows up against the corner. So I have no idea really where it comes from. Maybe I'm hiding from something, or I'm not really sure. Maybe it's just that I like to be able to put my hand up against the wall once in a while to grasp reality. I'm not sure.
Practicing psychiatrists can call now. Speak to Taylor. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
Now, I think there was at least one away from studio in Maine jaunt. Tell me about some of the stuff that you did in Seattle for the record. And I know you're trying not to give away too many of the guests on the record, but I think at least with Seattle, we can talk a little bit about who was working on this thing with you.
Yes, we can. Well, during the making of the record, we were writing a song, and it's one of my favorite songs on the record, and it was kind of screaming for my new friends Matt Cameron and Kim Thale to be on the song and Soundgarden. So I called them up and said, "Hey guys, I got this tune. This is begging for you guys to be on it. Is this something you would be interested in doing?" And they very graciously said yes. So we flew to Seattle. We booked London Bridge Studios, which was just wicked cool to record there. Because, I mean, it's Pearl Jam 10. It was Temple of the Dog, Loud and Love. So many great records that I grew up on. And so to get to record in such an iconic space was awesome. And so, yeah, that's where we made that song, which I can't tell you the title yet, but it's the second song on the record. But we showed up, and Matt Cameron he just wails. It's just ridiculous watching. He's such a monster behind the kit. And then then Kim Thale comes in, and just, I don't even know how he's doing what he's doing, but it's just a sonic blast that just smashes you in the face. And the whole thing just blew my mind. And I'm so happy with how it turned out. And I really can't wait for people to hear that song.
Two more follow-ups to that. First, when guys like that come in, of course, the most important thing is that you give them an understanding of what you're looking for from the song, and you want to give them enough rope that they can create something good out of it, which is why they're there. But I would think that you also want to pick their brains about what they've done through their careers, because you're just a music nerd like the rest of us. So tell me about the kinds of things that you would ask them about or talk to them about, either in terms of creating the song or, hey, you did this, this, and this. I'd be curious about how you get things done.
I mean, that's such a long conversation that I don't even know how to reiterate, because I asked them everything. Like literally everything and anything, from what did you have for breakfast to how are you hitting that snare? What cymbal is that? Who makes those wristbands? What pedal are you using, and what setting is it on? And, what kind of tea can I make you? Can I get it for you? I mean, I asked every single detail that I could think of. So it would be a very long conversation to try to reiterate it, but it was just such a great experience, and they're such amazing people, and obviously such iconically amazing musicians, that to be so fortunate to have worked with them on this song is just mind-blowing to me still.
I would imagine you enjoy watching artists who are that good and sort of so iconic in their sounds. Like I would imagine it would be fun to be in the studio watching Kim just tune up, because you could close your eyes and hear him hit just one A note, and you'd know anywhere that it was Kim Thale playing that note.
That's what was so great about it, and why I called them, because I was like, this is begging for you guys, because they play so how they play. Like, they're so uniquely identified and have such an identity, and otherwise I'd be like, I mean, we can do this, but we're just going to sound like we're ripping you guys off. Like, you want to be a part of this? And sure enough, they showed up, and they're the gods that you expect them to be.
And they've always seemed like pretty down to earth guys. Kim, I don't know, is like a gregarious kind of, he's not like a backslapping kind of guy. But he gives, in the times I've interviewed him, you know him. He's
pretty funny.
Oh,
I don't know how well you know him. He's actually pretty funny.
Oh, okay. He just answers the questions when I talk. I don't have that great a rapport with him. I haven't done that much with him through the years. I mean, you know him pretty well, apparently. But
he's serious, but he is funny. He does crack jokes once in a while.
Yeah, you know what I think it is? I think he intimidates me, and I don't think there's too many people who intimidate me.
Oh, he intimidated me too. I mean, I know him pretty well at this point, but in the beginning, they all intimidated me. I mean, it's Soundgarden. Yeah,
that's true. And one other last follow up to this section of the interview. You walk in this studio where obviously all of these incredible records have been made, What's the vibe? Do you feel the history coming off the walls? What's on the walls? Because I would imagine there's art and gold records and everything. Tell me about walking through those doors and seeing and smelling and experiencing everything in that building.
I mean, it was kind of exactly what you'd expect it to be. It was in one way, it was kind of like walking back in time, where you come in and there's just, all the Pearl Jam gold records and all the records I previously mentioned and paintings and there's a wall that's covered in signed drum heads and like just snapshots of pictures of people who've worked there, like a giant collage. It's like the kind of living room area when you first walk in. And then the studio itself is very kind of grungy but very warm and inviting, very comfortable, but still motivating. Which is, that's what you never want to walk into a studio and feel. I never want to walk into a studio and feel like I have to take my shoes off. Like I feel like that's not the kind of environment I want to work in. So it was very suited to what I was used to, but with all this added history to it of excitement of we get to record where all these great records were made.
Are you
and by the way, with the guys who made those great records?
Yeah, I could see where that would make it a little bit extra better. That's like, hey, we went to Abbey Road and Paul and Ringo helped us make the record.
And they showed up. And
yeah.
It was great. Yeah. Pretty much.
When you see all that stuff on the wall, now here's something I do not know about you. I'm like a pack rat and I'm a degenerate collector of things. I have hobbies. I collect all this sort of stuff, including like every bit of music memorabilia I've come across in my life. I've kept everything from 3,000 plus concerts, every ticket stub, pass, blah, 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 just all this stuff. Do you walk into a place like that and see those gold records and those posters and think, oh my God, I've got to get copies of these, or I wish I had this stuff? Or are you not as cursed by the desire to have all these little physical tchotchkes?
I mean, I don't know. You sound pretty obsessed, so I don't know if I'm that bad, but I definitely am a collector. I have drawers and bags and boxes and storage of stuff that I've collected throughout the years. I mean, when I first started touring, when I was 14, 15, I thought it would be it was a short tour my first time out, and I thought it would be a really cool idea to keep all the key cards from the hotels we stayed at, and I would make a collage out of them. Yeah, I didn't realize how many key cards that was going to be. So that venture ended quite quickly. But since then, it's been, I keep the posters from the tours we've done. I keep all the tour laminates, all the passes, anything that I deem valuable personally to myself. I mean, from the Soundgarden tour, I fangirled out like mad. I have all the merch in plethora. I raided the merch booth I have the contracts like framed. I mean, not literally, but they're not actually framed, but I have all that stuff. So yeah, I'm a bit of a collector.
Well, two things I have to follow up with. One is, I'm speaking to you from my home studio, and most of my memorabilia is kept off-site. I have like storage units just filled with stuff. However, here are the hundreds and hundreds of key cards that I still have. But
you still have them?
I swear to God,
they got lost and moved at some point.
No, I still have them. But the craziest collecting thing that I've ever heard of in my life is Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick, who is one of the greatest people on the face of the earth, let alone one of the greatest musicians. Rick could take everything that you and I have collected, put it together, and it would not even be 5% of everything that this guy has acquired through the years. There is one specific thing, and I think even you might think this is kind of weird, but now here's a guy who's been touring professionally since the 1960s. He still has every single boarding pass from the thousands of flights he's taken. Is that weird or what?
That's insane. I mean, that's a cool collection, though. Like yeah. That's an art. That's not even a collection. That's an art exhibit.
He actually exhibited it in Rockford, and then a short tour. They had a museum thing going around called Rick's Picks, and it had because he's had hundreds and hundreds of different guitar pick designs, and they had a stage close, and he's got thousands of guitars. But the thing I wanted to see the most was the boarding passes, and I never got to see it. So
speaking of picks, my first guitar pick was actually a Cheap Trick guitar pick that my dad caught from Rick at a Cheap Trick concert before I was born and kept. And it was his gift to me when I was young. It was my first guitar pick, and I now have it as a necklace because it's unplayable at this point. But that's full circle right there.
What is the design like? What does the pick look like? I'm going to try and figure out what era it's from. It's
an off-white pick. It's so faded at this point that I actually don't know what the design is. There's like some black. It looks like maybe it was like a paisley or some sort of that type of thing, like a check, maybe the checkers, but it wasn't the checks.
No.
Some sort of squiggly black design on it with the Cheap Trick written down on the other side. But it's real faded now, so I can't tell, but I still got it.
Well, that's awesome. And next time I see you in the flesh, I have hundreds and hundreds of Rick's picks and dupes of some of them. I'll bring you some for you can put in your pick jar or something, and I can help add to your collection. But couple last things, if you would be so kind. One of which is, given the vagaries of the world we're living in right now, what do you think the plan is for release, touring somewhere down the line, and all that kind of stuff? And I ask that question fully knowing that you probably do not have specific answers for everything.
Yeah, I don't, unfortunately. But, I mean, everything right now is kind of up in the air. I mean, all the information is kind of being trickled out slowly. Everything's being postponed as late as possible. We were supposed to be on tour right now, and it started with, one show is postponed. Now 2 shows are postponed. Now 3. Okay, now the tour is gone. Now we'll move on to the next month, and now that started to get postponed. So right now it's really all up in the air, but I am excited that the single's coming out or is out, and that people can hear it, and at least that there's something new for people to listen to, and that I am excited that when this is all cleared up, which it will clear up, I feel like live music's going to come back bigger and better than ever because everyone's just itching to get out. I mean, I know I am. I'm dying to play live.
And if you would be so kind, just a little bit of background on the artwork for the single, because it's actually pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we shot the single cover in New York, actually right before this all happened, right before lockdown. So luckily we got that photo shoot done in time. But we shot it in New York with the photographer Danny Hastings, who did the Going to Hell cover. So it was really great to work with him again. He did like the Wu-Tang cover. He's worked with Eminem and is a great friend of mine. So it was a really fun shoot. Working with, long-term friends feels very family energy. But I think the kind of inspiration or the objective with the single cover was to make something really like a classic rock and roll picture, a classic rock and roll album cover for a single. And while thinking of ideas, I was like, well, the title is so bold, the picture's got to be just as bold. So how are we going to do that? And it now is what you can see online. So the goal was classic rock and roll and bold. And if you look closely, there's Easter eggs to the record, which you won't notice right now. But once the record's out, we left some little Easter eggs for you all to find.
See, now, isn't that part of the fun of putting together not just a song, but all of the things that go along with the entire artistic package, i.e., artwork and lyric sheets and video? Like it's one just complete work of art, isn't it?
It entirely is. And I mean, to me, the artwork it's the full circle part of the record. It starts with writing the songs, then it's the recording of the songs, then it's the mastering of the album and, the track listing and all that. And then the artwork is the completion of the whole thing. It's the visual side of it that really makes it all come together as one succinct unit or whatever. And all the details of, who plays tambourine on who's playing harmonica and who's clapping in this one song, all that little stuff that you wouldn't notice is in all the liner notes. And I have so much fun writing that out and not giving credit, but, I guess giving credit to the people who helped make this piece of art. because it's fun. And I've, grew up wanting to read all the liner notes and wanting to know all those little details. And now I'm a little confused as to where people can find that information. I mean, we're in the process of putting the album packaging together right now, and I'm literally in the process of writing out all those details, but I don't know how people are going to find them or see them.
You and your team will figure it out. Now, when you first get a physical product, after everything is done, it's finally finished, you have it in your hand, do you look at it the first time nervous that you're going to find a typo or something's going to be wrong? Or
fuck yes. So it's this built up, like, it's pent up excitement of I'm holding it in my hands, but then I immediately start scanning for anything that's wrong, from the color, from the way the color's printed, to something spelled wrong, to there's an extra space here that shouldn't be there, to, anything that can be wrong. And there's always something wrong, always, every time. It's always some little something that no one's ever going to notice but me, but every time. But I guess it's the little mistakes that make it, it's human.
Although I find when there's a mistake there, for the rest of your life, every time someone hands you that, the first thing your eyes are going to go to is the extra space in between the words produced and by, or whatever it is. Is that the case for you?
I mean, yes and no. The first impact is, wow, I'm holding this in my hands. Then I search desperately for anything that's wrong. I find what's wrong, because it's usually something very minuscule. And then I'm pretty good about letting it go and going, what, no one's going to notice that but me. The general thing is correct, so move forward. It's all a go.
Well, Taylor, as always, I sincerely, I just enjoy talking to you about music. You were.
Thanks, man. I love talking to you too.
Yeah. I think at best, being on the radio and doing this, it's just music nerds sitting around talking about music nerd shit, and you are certainly a music nerd, and I
that's
enjoy.
What it should be, and that's what makes it so fun. I'm gonna get your book and read it, and next time I'm gonna interview you on all the details you didn't put in the book and the stuff I want to know.
Well, and you'll probably see all of the mistakes that made it into the first printing of the book, so we can talk about those too, because I obsessed the fuck out of those things. It's driving me crazy.
Right, of course, because it's your baby, and then suddenly it's no longer yours, and you can't fix it because we printed 1 billion of them, and it's like, well, I guess that's it. Okay, going with the flow. It's close enough.
More episodes of